of the opposition. I'm sure that he's not, based on what I've given as answers, as reply, and he's not among the some what I've been referring to. Now, about those who have passed away, the figures I've already given. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, if this is the case, then the number of deaths in Mauritius compared to all those countries he has mentioned should be higher. Should be higher in terms of what the leader of the opposition wants to project, that during that specific period, why should we only consider that specific period? Why don't we consider during the whole period of the pandemic? That's what I want to say, that he wants to concentrate during that specific period and saying that our health system, the doctors working there, all the team that have been working there, that they are not doing their job properly. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, before a patient is placed on ventilators, I've already stated that these patients come to ENT not in an emergency state. They do reach ENT in a state where tests are being carried out and there are other treatments being done to them. That's why you don't have the number of patients put on ventilators. That also has to be the question. Why only that number of patients being placed on ventilators? Our preparedness plan, we were supposed in such time to have more than 50 patients placed on ventilators. Why so far we have never exceeded more than 10 patients being placed on ventilators? Because patients been followed from the beginning and the treatment being given, and only on the last stage that these patients are being placed on ventilators, because appropriate treatment has been given to them. That's why we don't have that many patients. The question should have addressed to me like that. Why only less patients being placed on ventilators? Because the treatment being given before these patients reach that stage and that treatment being adequate. Now, obviously, at the last stage, when patients being placed on ventilators, this is the last stage, and that stage will have severe consequences. That's what we've seen. That's what's been transparent to it. So the question should have been put, why, when today we have so many patients being tested positive, when in this country we have so many patients with comorbidities being tested positive, so many patients with at this age being tested positive, why only a very small fraction of patients being placed on ventilators?
Mr. Speaker, the answer is very simple. We have the highest death rate per capita per million than almost any other country with our level of vaccination. And I will remind the Honourable Minister that the question was put for October because we want to show the effect of the Delta variant. I thought that would have been obvious without having to tell him. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to ask him, given that we have shown here figures, proven by figures, that the death rate at the ICU for intubation is more than twice other countries would do it well. I'm going to ask him a very simple question. Why hasn't he up to now sought the help from a friendly country and obtained intensive care specialists from India, from USA, from UK, from other places to help to reduce this dismal death rate in Mauritius, which, as I said, per capita is one of the highest in the world?
Thank you. Honourable Deputy Speaker, sir, I think the first, I've already stated why we have a small number of patients being placed on ventilators, because on that pre-ventilation stage, treatment being adequate, and obviously the last resort is whenever all fail, then patients are being placed on ventilators, meaning from this side that treatment being given appropriate, there are appropriate treatment being given before these patients are being placed on ventilators. The leader of the opposition should remind himself, in some countries, patients are taken from their house, from their homes, into being intubated and ventilated at this point. We don't have these issues in Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, sir, in Mauritius, patients are being taken care of. Since the beginning, in the past, if he will still remember, all positive patients being admitted in treatment centers, in hotels, for a surveillance. Even today, it is one of the rare countries in the world where tests being carried out and where patients are being followed. Even if they are isolated at home, these patients are being followed, and before they become critical or severely critical, these patients are already being admitted. And obviously, if you give appropriate treatment in the initial stage, you will have a less number who will be in the severe state. And obviously, if these patients turn up to be ventilated and intubated, the death rate will be more. But Mr. Speaker, sir, at the same time, comparing these figures bluntly with other countries' figures, this does not justify. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, about the about the death rate and whether the ministry has sought any assistance from other countries. Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, the WHO is already providing assistance, technical assistance for our anesthetics and those working in ICUs to give their assistance. And also there is a collaboration between Mauritius and Reunion Island for mutual assistance.
Mr. Speaker,
thank you.
I'm going to show the House the figures published by the Ministry of Health yesterday. 7 new cases admitted to ENT. Can the Minister tell us that in fact 7 cases only admitted to ENT? Because ENT was full completely. 4 people were left in a difficult situation at Rosebell. Some of them died, and also at SSRN's hospital in the north, at least 8 people yesterday were waiting to join ENT, and they did not do so because ENT did not refuse to take them. Now, don't give us wrong information, because it's going to be published later on.
Mr. Deputy.
We keep questions simple. You have a very good question.
Mr.
Straightforward question, straightforward answers.
Straightforward.
For you as well, a straightforward question, please.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir,
Give your answer,
I've already stated that at ENT we have a bed capacity of 120, and as at yesterday, so far I remember, there are only 51 patients over there, so the questions of patients being denying to come to ENT doesn't arise.
We're talking about ICU. We're not talking about just any bed, for God's sake. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm going now to come to cases of medical negligence. He said himself that he's going to refer cases of medical negligence quickly. Was it the case of Ramana and the case of Mr. Lashman, who died? Why haven't these cases yet been referred to the Standing Committee on Medical Negligence, although the situation is dramatic outside? And cases, persistent reports, criticisms are being made. Of course, the people are overwhelmed. Of course, they are understaffed. But that is not their fault. That is his fault. But why haven't these cases yet, as of this morning, nothing has been referred to the Standing Committee on Medical Negligence concerning Mr. Lashman and Mr. Ramana?
May I, first of all?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir.
1 second. First of all, from the questions that I have in front of me, I do not see medical negligence, but I'll allow the Minister to answer. I expect all supplementary that arise from the question given to me, please. If you have an answer, please.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, both cases have already been referred. I will advise the Leader of Opposition to check his source and to officially write to us. We'll give the date when the cases was referred and not to rely on unreliable sources. Mr. Speaker, sir, again, I will just state out that in the different hospitals, we do have ICU beds to cater patients with COVID, because these patients do have COVID as well as other medical conditions. So the treatment being given in the different hospitals, be it at G2 Hospital, SSR, already all those hospitals, in fact in all the hospitals, provisions have already been made to cater patients in ICU. I stated it again clearly, in ICU, and where you have all the specialties being present to look after these cases.
Thank you,
Mr. Speaker, I maintain what I've said about ICU being full, and I maintain about what I've said about no case of Lashman and Ramana referred to the Standing Committee. Mr. Speaker, now I'll come to the figures, which don't make any sense to anyone, which is publishing every day. I'll come to these figures, Mr. Speaker. Has he taken note of what Dr. Musango said in the Défi recently, clearly showing that the ministry is misreporting the number of positive cases? And I would also, on the same subject, refer the Honourable Minister to the WHO guidelines as far as deaths are concerned, deaths due to COVID. And it is clear there that whenever someone is COVID positive, the case should be, except in rare exceptional circumstances, be declared and accounted for as a death due to COVID. Therefore, again, Mr. Speaker, his own figures as to number positive, number of deaths are wrong and manipulated, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. Yes, I'll again maintain that what I said, cases have been referred to Medical Negligence Committee, and that our ICU still have bed capacities, have places to admit patients. Now, secondly, about the reporting. Mr. Deputy Speaker says the reporting of the death is being done based upon the WHO guidelines. He can again confirm it, and this is not in Mauritius, even all around the world, that death due to COVID is being already, we have been doing it since the beginning. There is no manipulation of figures, and those who have the death is due to COVID is already has been reported.
Thank you. Honourable Leader of Opposition. No
Speaker, I like to refer the Honourable Minister to what Dr. Musango said in public, that in fact the figures are not accurate and underreported. I'd like to ask the Honourable Minister now concerning a practical issue. Persons attending the COVID testing centres, the flu clinics, are tested positive, yet they are allowed to return home in crowded buses. Well, how is it that this practice is being allowed, and what is he proposing to do to stop that?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, so again, I'll come to what the representative, WHO representative in Mauritius said, that the PCR test are the gold standard confirmed test that somebody is suffering from COVID-19. And the rapid antigen test, it gives you an indication. By a PCR test, we can determine whether this patient, at what stage of infection he is, based upon some values in that PCR test. In a rapid antigen test, we can't determine that value. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, at the same time, for the rapid antigen test, being given that we are a population who's already vaccinated, more than 70% of the population being vaccinated, obviously, there will be transmission among this population. But the severity of the illness, what we have been discussing, we have been debating, is very less. We should admit that 98% of those who've been tested by rat, they are all asymptomatic. They are patients who are asymptomatic. They are patients who have no symptoms or very mild symptoms. What interests us is those patients who will develop severe symptoms. Those patients, we need to be followed. We have to follow them carefully. We have to follow them from the beginning they get this illness. We should not always forget that the comorbidities. We should not also forget about the age of these patients. So that's why the policy is to give that real statistics of those who are PCR positive.
Thank you.
I will table, with your permission, an article published in Défi Media, and this is what Dr. Musango says. On doit comptabiliser les tests PCR et les tests antigéniques également. So I'm going to stick to this question, and I'm going to ask the Minister whether he reads the papers and whether he has read what Dr. Musango has said. On doit comptabiliser les tests PCR et les tests antigéniques également.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, see, in the last 2 PNQs, I have given the number of rapid antigen tests positive. I have given it officially. It is up to any authorities to account these tests. These tests, we will not account it. Well, all the authorities, I've given it in the first PNQ, I've given the figures of the rapid antigen test. Last time also I've given it. Today also I've given it for that, during that period. So any authorities wish to account it, to comptabiliser, they are free to do it. We don't have any problem of doing it. If tomorrow you're going to ask me, and the next PNQ you'll ask me again, what are the number of tests being done? I will give the numbers. And now if you wish to comptabiliser all the tests, it's up to you. It's up to you. If you are an expert in doing statistics, you keep on doing it. But we are going to give the figures. But
the Minister should know that as long as he's manipulating the figures, there will be questions in this House to establish the truth. You should know that, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, time may be running out. I am asking the Honourable Minister, there are so many reports in my constituency everywhere of people dying suddenly at home. He himself given the figure, I think, of 7 in October. Now the figure, no doubt, has increased substantially again last few days. What is he going to do to stop this unfortunate happening of people dying suddenly at home of COVID, obviously?
May I, first of all, we cannot make any allegation as to manipulation. Answer the question. After that, you have a last question as per the time. Honourable Minister.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I will take back this manipulation of figures. The Ministry, I stated it in the last part of my reply, is giving all the information required, and also to safeguard public at large. But at the same time, I also referred to those some who wanted to build political mileage on this issue, and I believe that that is a reason why we are insisting on the figures. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, we should not forget that no one is been able, even the leader of the opposition, is not saying that, yes, we have been able to do the vaccination, and the vaccination has really protected 95% of the population. He's not coming and telling us that, you know, we have 24,000 disabilities in this country. Out of them, 12,000 are vaccinated. 6,000 are being, the vaccination is being carried out, and 6,000 people haven't been vaccinated. What is his contribution to help these people to get vaccinated? Unfortunately, he is going to talk about manipulation of figures, but his contribution as somebody who is in the public domain, he hasn't contributed at all. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I'm not talking about manipulation of figures, but I wish also to know what is his contribution. Unfortunately, his contribution is equivalent to nil.
No, allow me first. We do not go as to conduct of any honourable members in this House. This is the last question. Be very short, otherwise I'm mindful to end it exactly on time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for putting him in his place. Mr. Speaker,
I'm not
I'm going to ask my last question.
No, don't
Whatever
make any
you
comment.
did, you did well.
Everybody has to do their job in this House.
Exactly.
Last question, short question.
Short and sharp, Mr. Deputy
Thank
Speaker.
you very much.
I'm going to do my bit. I'm going to ask Mr. Speaker whether, since this pandemic has been going on for some time now, getting worse and worse, people are dying, whether all through this time the Minister has thought of doing the decent thing, and offering his resignation to the President of the Republic of Mauritius, whether he has done so, and whether it has been refused, and if he has not done so, whether he can do so immediately this afternoon itself.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'll first come to that part of the question I did not reply, was that patients, there are many cases, and that's why the Prime Minister, once he came back to Mauritius on Thursday last, and on the same day, the high-level committee met. The Prime Minister has taken stock of all the situation, the number of cases, the death, and the treatment being offered. Based on all that, the Prime Minister have, with the high-level committee, obviously, taken the decision to put the measures, the restriction measures that have been in place. Especially we know that COVID-19, the propagation, the way people will get infected, how we can reduce the contamination. This has been the laudable, at this point of time. and to do that. And we know that after doing so, the number of people, the crowd that has been, for the last weekend, we have seen that it has come down, and we hopefully expect that cases correspondingly will start going down, and that will help the frontliners, the healthcare workers, to be able to look after those patients, be it COVID or not COVID, to continue to work. Now, about the question of resignation, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, the Prime Minister, he's the authority to have nominated me on this post, and it is for him to decide, and whatever be his decision will be my decision. And we, on this side of the house, will respect our leaders. We don't take decisions by ourselves. He is our leader. He has given me this opportunity, which I'm very much thankful to him. In these difficult times, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, he has been along with us, working day and night. And today, whatever, he can't hear this, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, because he can't be a leader like this, unfortunately. He can't be. That's why he has to get. Let the Prime Minister decide about my designation as whatever. Let him. He has given me the opportunity to be the candidate. He has the opportunity to work with him under this government. This is his job, and it is not the job of the leader of the opposition. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Order. No, but Honorable Leader of Opposition. Order. Order, honorable members. Honorable members. Honorable members. Order. Order. Order, honorable leader of the opposition. Order, honorable minister. Order, honorable leader of opposition. Order, honorable Patricia Servanda. Order, everybody. Thank you very much. It's time for serious work. Prime Minister, question time. Honorable First Member, Portrush South and Portrush Central.
B1072.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed that Mr. K.A. is currently the chairperson of Airports of Mauritius Company Limited and of its following 5 subsidiaries: Airport Terminal Operations Limited, Airport of Rodrigues Limited, Mauritius Duty Free Paradise Company Limited, Rodrigues Duty Free Paradise Company Limited, Pointe Coton Resort Hotel Company Limited. Mr. K.A. does not sit on the board of any parastatal bodies falling under the aegis of the Prime Minister's office.
Supplementary.
Yes. Can I ask the Honourable Prime Minister whether he does not consider it an issue of governance, being given that Mr. K.A. is the CEO of Airport Holding Limited, and at the same time, he is the chairman of 5 entities that the Prime Minister has listed himself, falling under his own holding?
Honorable Prime Minister.
No, there is no issue of governance as far as I have been informed. And if I can remind the honourable member, if there was an issue of governance, I think the government of the Labour Party should have taken note of an issue of governance. Because if we look at the past, there was one Mr. M.I.M.H., who was the managing director of the State Investment Corporation Limited. I hope you can recall who that person I'm talking about. And he was director and chairperson of 26 companies. 26.
You've done, Mr. Prime Minister?
In fact, many more than that, probably. But then there was the Labour Party didn't see any issue of governance,
supplementary now.
I think
Probably I should be asking the question and you should reply.
Sure.
no.
Or
I hope
question.
the Prime Minister realizes that we are not comparing apple to apple. And let me explain to him why. Here we have the case of a holding under which there are some 10 to 14 subsidiaries. And Mr. K.A. is the CEO of that holding, and he is involved as chairperson of those subsidiaries that the Honorable Prime Minister has mentioned himself, he's being chairman at policy level. The case that the Prime Minister has just mentioned, I could not possibly answer because I was not a politician at that time. But what I can tell him, the little knowledge that I have of the sector, we are not comparing apple to apple because the SIC was not those companies that maybe he has not given the name of the companies. How do we know that these companies are subsidiaries of the SIC and not other companies falling in which SIC has invested in?
Honorable First Member, with all due respect, questions. I myself didn't hear a question. Your question. What is your question to the Prime Minister?
Yes.
I heard a speech.
My question to the Honorable Prime Minister is as follows. Are we comparing apple to apple based on the explanation that I've given?
Thank you very much. Honorable Prime Minister. Order. Honorable Prime Minister, please.
Well, let me say first of all, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, he is obviously joined politics much later on probably, but I can recall he was also part of the government in the Labour Party. He was a consultant, or he was responsible for MID, something like that. And I hope you took interest in the business of the government at that time. I hope you knew what was happening, especially with regard to SIC. But since you like apples, let me give you another apple. Another apple. If you can recall, in the case of Mr. R.D.N.R. You can mention the name if you want. He was also a chairperson of the State Investment Corporation Limited and chairperson of 7 subsidiaries. Now, you are saying that you can't compare apple. You are hoping that I will be comparing apple with apple. It is apple with apple. Because this company has got subsidiaries, and I've mentioned in my answer. They are the subsidiaries of the, well, I must have my answer somewhere anyway. Yes. So the Airport of Mauritius Company Limited has those following subsidiaries which I mentioned. And in the case of SIC, it is the same thing. It is the SIC being the main company having a number of subsidiaries with the CEO, Mr. M.H., being the CEO and being also chairperson and director of a number of subsidiaries.
Honorable members, you have about 2 questions. The other members asking, would you?
Can I? We are talking about a very strategic sector. And the company, Airport Holdings Limited, according to the Registrar of Companies, has been deemed formed on the 12th of August 2021, which is about 3 months ago. Can I ask the Honourable Prime Minister, how does he reconcile with the fact for such an important entity with colossal amount of investment, with billions of rupees worth of asset, there are only 1 director on the board right now, which is Mr. Dave Manraj, and also 1 CEO. No other board members right now for the sake of governance, for the sake of good management of our strategic asset, which is the airport.
Well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I am not trying to ask you to call the member to order, but if the honourable member looks at his question, what he's put, whether in regard to parastatal bodies, state-owned companies, other than Airport Holdings Limited. Now he's putting questions on Airport Holdings Limited. If you come with a substantive question, you say other than, you ask for all the other state-owned companies, and then you jump to AHL. So I am not here to give lessons. I'm not here to give lessons, but I think we should know our standing orders well. And I think you, although you are a young politician, John, you have only recently been elected, probably. Now, I think you have sufficient experience to know that when you ask the supplementary question should relate to your main question.
Thank you. All I'm requesting is, we all here know the standing orders. You have one more question.
Okay. No, in that case, because the Honorable Prime Minister has...
No, don't give an explanation. Put a question, please.
Okay. Can I ask the Honorable Prime Minister, being given that he has limited multiple directorship for Mr. K, because he is in charge of a strategic asset, how does he reconcile with the fact, and for a good reason, that Mr. K, as per the Registrar of Companies, is still a board member at the CEB, which is not related at all to the core business of AHL, but at the same time the men need to focus on this strategic sector because, like I said, there's a colossal amount of investment and also billions of rupees worth of assets.
The honourable member doesn't understand. Again, what I've stated earlier, he puts a question asking me about the state-owned companies and parastatal bodies falling under the aegis of the Prime Minister's office. And now he's asking a question about CB. Are you aware that CB doesn't fall under my portfolio? So you ask a question to the relevant minister. And don't, Mr. Deputy Speaker, don't you say wasting the time of the House.
Order. 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 Honourable Third Member, Port South and Port Central. Next question, please.
B1073, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed by the Acting Commissioner of Police that the reward scheme for informers is in force since long. Recourse to informers is one of the means used by the police to combat crime. The procedures of the reward scheme are defined in Police Standing Order 122. The objective of the reward scheme is to assist law enforcement agencies in the effective combat against crimes, drug trafficking, dismantling of drug networks, and the detection of other crimes such as murder, larceny, terrorism, and organized crimes, as well as other serious crimes. It is known and acknowledged worldwide that several important and high-profile crime cases have been resolved by law enforcement agencies where the information provided by tested and reliable informers has been crucial and determining. I am informed by the Acting Commissioner of Police that the following criteria determine the quantum of reward to be disbursed in each case: nature and circumstances, persons and number of persons arrested, the quantity and value of drugs and exhibits secured, risk involved, and reliability and regularity of the informers. I am informed by the Acting Commissioner of Police that a reward scheme for police officers was introduced in December 2001. The payment of the reward to police officers for the seizure of cannabis, psychotropic, and other illicit substances was made at the same rate as that payable to customs officers. The scale of reward depended on the weight and type of the drug seized. However, for customs officers, the scheme was abolished in 2006 after the coming into effect of the Mauritius Revenue Authority Act. Payment of reward to police officers was stopped as from May 2014 in respect of seizures for year 2013 onwards. In July 2015, the police was advised to refer the matter to the Pay Research Bureau. However, the Pay Research Bureau did not address the issue in its report of 2016. In January 2016, the then Commissioner of Police restored the payment of reward money to police officers with regard to uprooting and seizure of cannabis plants only. This represents an incentive and motivation for ADSU personnel and other police officers to venture into difficult and risk-prone areas such as gorges, dense forests, in search of hidden cannabis plantations, which are very often surreptitiously protected by traps and other dangerous obstacles. As from September 2021, the payment of reward money to police officers has been extended to the detection of drug cases. Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to Part A of the question, I am informed by the Acting Commissioner of Police that since July 2016, the number of times reward money has been granted, as well as the quantum disbursed for each year, is as follows: 34 times for the period July 2016 to June 2017, for a total amount of 5,502,520 rupees, 35 times for the period July 2017 to June 2018, for a total amount of 4,217,210 rupees, 21 times for the period July 2018 to June 2019, for a total amount of 6,162,200 rupees, 18 times for the period of July 2019 to June 2020, for a total amount of 5,365,847 rupees and 75 cents, 12 times for the period July 2020 to June 2021, for a total amount of 1,339,340 rupees, and 12 times for the period July 2021 to date, that is till the 11th of November 2021, for a total amount of 2,835,800 rupees. Regarding Part B of the question, I am also informed by the Acting Commissioner of Police that reward money is disbursed in respect of inter alia, drug offences, murder, and larceny cases. Mr. Speaker, sir, as regards Part C of the question, I am informed by the Acting Commissioner of Police that the procedures for the payment of reward money to informants and police officers are as follows. Divisional commanders and branch officers submit an application to the Commissioner of Police for approval and payment of reward. Following approval by the Commissioner of Police, the application is forwarded to the Manager, Financial Operations for payment. A payment voucher accounts Form 232 is filled by the Manager, Financial Operations, and a government check in the amount claimed is drawn in favor of the divisional commanders and branch officers concerned. The check is handed over to the divisional commanders and branch officers concerned for encashment and payment of rewards, and after payment is effected by the divisional commanders and branch officers concerned, the recipients acknowledge receipt thereof. The Commissioner of Police has the prerogative and discretion to either approve, reject, or review the amount of reward money recommended.
Thank you, Honourable Prime Minister. Supplementary, please.
Thank you, Honourable Prime Minister. Will the Honourable Prime Minister confirm or check with the Acting Commissioner of Police that all reward money that has been channeled as per Standing Order 122, particularly subsection 4 and 5, to the informants, has been well checked by the police officers, and if not, appropriate actions against those who do not adhere to such procedures, actions being taken, such as internal departmental inquiry by the Central CID.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, it is the procedure that the process for payment is normally being abided according to the standing order. And therefore, if the Honourable Member has a case in mind, obviously, I will transmit this to, if ever there is a case in mind, wherever there has not been any procedural, I believe what the Honourable Member is thinking, if process has not been abided to by the standing order. But I don't have this information so far.
I'm sure you got the message. Supplementary. You have two supplementary, unless you want to give way.
Thank you for the answer, but I think this has come to the limelight of public knowledge that there has been concerns with regard to serious allegations of corruption or money laundering offense, particularly in the allocation of reward money for a particular case since March 2020. And this is why it's the interest of me putting that question so that we could have further enlightenment and information as to what is happening with regards to the disbursement of reward money. My question is, can the Honourable Prime Minister confirm with the relevant authorities whether it is acceptable that the informant is himself a senior officer of the police force or even ADSU and be entitled to the reward money?
Thank you, Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, I should be made aware, first of all, of specific information. If money has to be paid to an informant, it has to be an informant, not a member of the police force. Whereas if there is any reward to be given to a police officer as prescribed, of course it will be given to the police officer. So I need to be made aware of a case where I can then request the Commissioner of Police to provide me with details, as I say.
I'm sure you understood. Name to be given in private. Last question.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
The Honourable Prime Minister gives us a very detailed account of the amount disbursed from 2016 to 2021. Information that has been brought in public arena and have gathered so far is that in 2017-2018, approximately 3.8 million rupees have been disbursed to informants. Can the Honourable Prime Minister seek clarification with the Acting Commissioner of Police as to the number of secret receipts? And here I made it very clear, we are not looking for the identity of informants. The secret receipt as stipulated by the Standing Order 122 and subsection 4.5, whether these secret receipts have been assigned and kept in custody. Thank you.
Well, this is the normal procedure. They should be kept, they should be checked by the persons in authority. And I can also, but it's good for me to say also that you mentioned about a particular period. Yes, I have answered and I've given you all the details. But this, scheme about reward money being paid doesn't date back from 2014. It dates back from as I stated in my answer, I think from 2001 or 2000. And when I look at what has been disbursed in the past, let me give, for example, 2 cases. From January to December 2012, 4 million, out of a budget of 4.13 million rupees, 4,098,085 rupees were disbursed to informants. In January, from January to December 2013, out of a budget of 3.55 million rupees, 3,544,680 rupees. I have a list of all the information with regard to each year, how much was budgeted and how much has been disbursed also. And I believe that during those years also, there was the same process, and that all these receipts must have been kept for verification in order to see to it that the money has landed where it should be.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. You done with the answer?
Sorry?
Answer is over.
Yes, that's all right.
Honorable First Member of... Yes, next question. First Member of Bassin and Petite Rivière.
Mr. Speaker, sir, there are presently 14 advisors at the Prime Minister's office, namely Mr. Ramprakash Mantura, Special Advisor, Mr. Mavendra Singh, Special Advisor, Sir Binod Basha, KTCMG FMIM, Senior Advisor, Mr. Kridev Bihari, Senior Advisor, Dr. Zubair Hussain Issa Jumai, Senior Advisor, Mrs. Sarah Rawat Karimji, Senior Advisor, Mr. Shanknad Garbaran, Senior Advisor, Mr. Raj Mitarban, Advisor, Ms. Chow Penlo Seong Shao, Advisor, Mrs. Daimandi Rangasamy, Advisor on Information Matters, Mr. Prithviraj Singh Ramparsad, Advisor on Social and Cultural Matters, Mr. Surendra Tilak, Advisor, Mrs. Nudar Banu Bandhu, Advisor on Drugs and HIV/AIDS, and Mr. Mohesh Kumar Ramlochan, Advisor. Out of the 14, the following 4 advisors are providing their services to my office without any remuneration. Mr. Mavendra Singh, Special Advisor, Dr. Zubair Hussain Issa Jumai, Senior Advisor, Mr. Shanknad Garbaran, Senior Advisor, and Mr. Surendra Tilak, Advisor. Mr. Speaker, sir, the terms and conditions of the advisors are, in general, in line with the recommendations contained in the PRB report. Mr. Speaker, sir, a list of advisors attached to my office as at 21st of June 2021 has already been laid in the Library of the National Assembly. I am tabling an updated list as requested by the Honourable Member.
Thank you, Honourable Prime Minister. You done with the answer? Answer is over, Honourable Prime Minister.
Sorry?
You have answered?
Yes?
Thank you. So, Honourable First Member...
I have one supplementary, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Can I ask the Prime Minister whether those who are working on a free basis, I can say free basis, voluntarily, whether they have been given other facilities, such as facilities as duty-free for purchase of car and other facilities by government?
Honourable Prime Minister, answer.
I don't think so, because they are not asking for any remuneration. But anyway, it will be probably in the document that I have already laid before in the library, and the updated document today. But well, I can say no.
Another supplementary, if you have. Anybody else have a supplementary here? Honourable Jointo.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. Can the Honourable Prime Minister enlighten the House whether former prime ministers, namely Paul Raymond Béranger or Dr. Navin Chandra Ramgoolam, had any advisors?
Yeah. Well, it's good
Thank
to
you.
compare.
Honourable Minister, order,
what's the
let's
noise?
hear it. Let's
the
not waste
noise?
time. Order. Order. Let's not waste time. Let's hear the answer. Order. Order. Honourable Prime Minister, please.
Former Prime Minister Honorable Béranger had 20 advisors. And former Prime Minister Dr. Navin Chandra Ramgoolam had 21 advisors. But let me add also, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, the honourable member, Honourable Bhagwan, he was not Prime Minister, he was a minister. He had 11 advisors. For himself, 11 advisors.
Order. 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 Honourable, next question. Honourable second member. Order.
1075.
Order. Honourable. Honourable.
1075.
Honourable members. Honourable first member of Bobassa Petite Rivière. Honourable Bhagwan, please. Honourable first, second member of Port-Louis South and Port-Louis Maritime. Order, I want to hear. Honourable Bhagwan, I want to hear. Honourable Prime Minister. This is not a moment of pride when I want to hear the Prime Minister. Answer, please, to the next question of Honourable.
I have answered, but the honourable member should also not throw mud at advisors. Look what has happened in the. Look at.
Order.
Yes, but look at the case of Prakash Mantura. If you can remember what you said, what you've been saying in this house against him. Have you read the judgment? Have you read the judgment? I can quote part of the judgment.
Order.
It's a shame that you've been throwing mud at him.
Order. Order. Order, Vizier, please. Honourable member. Honourable Bhagwan. Order. Order. Honourable. Continue, Honourable Bhagwan. Continue. Continue, I want to hear you now. Because you should allow me to do my job. I've already recognized Honourable Utim for the next question. Do you have the next question?
B 1075.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in my reply to parliamentary question B210, at the sitting of 7th July 2020, I explained the groundworks that were being undertaken for a successful introduction and use of Creole language into the National Assembly. In this respect, the different stakeholders involved have pursued their actions. I am informed that following my reply to PQ B/210, the Creole-speaking union has set up a broad interinstitutional research project called Préparation terrain pour introduction Creole République Maurice dans Parlement. In this context, the collaboration of 5 public tertiary education institutions, namely the University of Mauritius, the University of Technology, the Open University of Mauritius, the Université du Mascareignes, and the Mauritius Institute of Education have been sought and obtained for the formal adhesion of their respective institutions to the project. Consequently, a steering committee called Comité Pilotage has been set up under the chair of Professor Arnaud Carpouran, OSK, to monitor the work of the following 4 subcommittees. Comité Terminologie. The purpose of this subcommittee is to develop a parliamentarian terminology in Creole Mauricien. This committee is co-chaired by Dr. Béatrice Antonio Françoise and Dr. Drita Hassamal, both from the Mauritius Institute of Education. The committee, following a collaboration with experts in terminology from the Bureau de la Traduction of Canada, has developed a methodology specific to the terminological aspect of the project. The stages of the ongoing work are as follows: identification of specific and related parliamentary terms via a monolingual text analysis software, proposition of equivalent specific and related parliamentary terms in Creole, and a validation of the proposed specific and related parliamentary terms in Creole with language specialists and specialists of the parliamentary sector. The objective is to have a list of terms which are specific or related to the Parliament and their equivalent in Creole. A Facebook page has also been created to enable all citizens to bring their collaboration to the terminological aspect of the project, and the next step will be a validation of the parliamentary terms with language specialists as well as specialists of the Parliament sector. The second committee, Comité Variation Registrale. The objective of this subcommittee is to work on a parliamentarian socio-situational variety for Mauritian Creole, that is, which word categories to be considered as parliamentarian or not. This committee is chaired by Dr. Mrs. Yannick Bosquet of the University of Mauritius. The research methodology adopted by the subcommittee is designed in 3 phases. Phase 1, research documentation, collection and analysis of research literature on parliamentary linguistics. Phase 2, fieldwork, translation and in vivo observations. And Phase 3, analysis of data and proposals. After 1 year of work, the subcommittee is now completing Phase 1 and has started Phase 2. The third committee, Comité Formation Information. The objective of this subcommittee is to ensure the dissemination of scientific information through short video clips and training of staff of the National Assembly with regard to reading and writing in Creole Mauricien as per official orthography. The committee is chaired by Mrs. Christina Chan Mitu, Senior Lecturer, University of Mauritius, in collaboration with Mrs. Sushita Nirban from the Open University of Mauritius, and Mrs. Alisha Boulaki from the University of Technology, Mauritius. The committee has completed the background research and methodology framework. A YouTube channel called Creole République Maurice dans Parlement has already been created, and a recording of the webinar, which provides an update on the whole project, is available therein. The fourth committee, c'est Comité Informatique. The main purpose of this subcommittee, co-chaired by Dr. Baby Gobin from the University of Mauritius and Dr. Nilam Piabai Jita from Université de Mascarenhas, is the development of technical tools and IT equipment for a spell checker for Creole Mauricien and a speech-to-text software in Creole Mauricien for transcriptions of Creole Mauricien oral text to a formal written form. For the spell checker, a first web-based prototype has been developed based on the Creole Mauricien dictionary, and worked on improving the tool is still ongoing. For the speech-to-text transcription tool, some approaches have been tested, and a good recognition rate of 150 sentences spoken in Creole Mauricien has been reached. The next step is to create audio datasets by translating the text from Parliament in Creole and then recording it so that the recognition model can be built. Mr. Speaker, sir, on the other hand, the Ministry of Education, Tertiary Education, Science and Technology has informed that the Académie Créole République Maurice, set up in 2019 to follow up on the development and the use of Creole language in the Republic of Mauritius, has so far elaborated and validated a standard orthography and grammar and offered course in Creole language along with curriculum materials for teachers training at diploma, B.Ed and PGCE levels. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have covered a lot of ground, but there's still a long way to go. Works which have started need to be continued so as to ensure a successful introduction of Creole Mauritian into the National Assembly.
Thank you for your detailed answer. Honourable members, the table has been advised that PMQT B1078 has been withdrawn. Time is over. Honourable members, the table has also been advised that PQB 1112 will be replied by Acting Minister of Environment, Solid Waste Management and Climate Change. PQB 1117 will be replied by the Honourable Minister of Land Transport and Light Rail, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Regional Integration and International Trade. PQ 1118 will be replied by Dr. the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness. PQB 1110, B1111, B1125, B1136, B1137 and B1138 have been withdrawn. Honourable First Member of Port Louis South and Port Louis Central.
Thank you. B1080.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. I wish to refer the Honourable Member to the reply I made to Parliamentary question B1050 by Honourable Adila Miamia last week itself, wherein I informed that Phase 2 and 3 of the Ring Road project will be studied after determining the impact of ongoing road infrastructural and other national projects. Consequently, the question of latest alignment does not arise at this stage.
Yes, I've read the reply to PQB 1050, wherein it is stated that the estimated cost is 10 billion rupees. But the Honourable Minister last year tendered a reply in B328, July 2020, wherein the estimated cost was 8.8 billion rupees, meaning both post-COVID, within 16 months, it has increased by 14%. Can I ask the Honourable Minister whether this is due to a change of the alignment? Because 15% increase after COVID in 16 months is quite substantial.
Honourable Minister, please.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, the main question refers to the latest alignment. And I've already replied that the question of latest alignment does not arise. There is no latest alignment. Thank you.
Next supplementary, if you have.
Yes. The alignment of phases 2 and 3 will involve passing the ring road on the slopes on the mountains of Port Louis, including a tunnel. And in this respect, in reply to PQ 492 of 4 July 2017, the then Minister, Honorable Boda, undertook that a study that includes geotechnical investigation would be carried out in the months to come, meaning in 2017 or 2018. Can I ask the Honourable Minister whether this geotechnical investigation, which was a commitment in the House here, has been undertaken, and if so, whether we can have a copy of that geotechnical investigation?
Once again, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I've said that government has undertaken other projects, and we want to see what the impact of the other projects are on the traffic. Then we will decide to study again the ring road. So far, the question doesn't arise. And a geotechnical test costs quite a lot of money. So we want to spend public money, public fund in a study that we don't know whether we're going ahead or not.
Last question.
Sure.
Your question, do you take account of the answers given?
Yes,
So that it will
of course.
inform.
I'm sure the Honourable Minister will realize that the alignment, whom he said he won't be able to give details or whatever, has a lot of impact on the lives of people living in my constituency in the first place. I will talk about other places later, in Valley Pito and Trengba, because these people are not being regularized insofar as their leases are concerned, and a lot of land is being locked to development because they are waiting for this issue to be resolved. And in the context, the Ministry of Housing and Land is also embarking on 12,000 housing units. This issue of alignment, although it's not important to him at this stage, is important to the people living there.
Question.
We are discussing with those having issues, those land that has been landlocked, for instance. We are talking to those people, and we are a government that listen to what people are saying out there, and we are taking into consideration those calls, and we are acting on it.
Thank you, Minister. Next question, Honourable First Member.
B1081.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that the proposed project consists of the construction of a multi-sport complex at Port Louis, and not to the proposed construction of a multi-sport complex in Ward 4, Port Louis specifically. The project has been high on the priority list of infrastructural projects of my ministry. Funds allocated in the estimates of my ministry have been used for consultancy services in order to enable the kickstart of the project. Following a bidding exercise, the contract for consultancy services for the construction of a multi-sport complex at Port Louis was awarded to Mega Design Limited on 13 December 2018. And the contract agreement for the project was signed on 15 January 2019. The inception report was submitted by the consultant in March 2019, and the preliminary architectural drawings were submitted to this ministry on 14 May 2019. Thereafter, the drawings, architectural and structural, for clearance for Building Plan Committee were submitted on 26 August 2019, and clearances were sought from relevant authorities on 27 August 2019. However, on 2 August 2021, my ministry was informed by the Ministry of Housing and Land Use Planning that the plot of land that was earmarked for the project was being retrieved from my ministry.
Supplementary, please.
Well, that plot of land, can I ask the Honourable Minister, why was it retrieved from his ministry? The plot of land, supposedly in Ward Cut in Port Louis, that was meant to be developed under his ministry for sports purposes, why has that plot of land been retrieved from his ministry?
Answer.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, we are referring to the plot of land situated at Harris and Mayor Street, Port Louis. I am informed that there will be a housing project. The Ministry of Land Use is proposing housing projects. I don't have more information.
Would you allow the French to have supplementary? We have two questions.
One more.
So we'll have one more outside, and then we'll give you the last one. Honourable Rezaoutin, please.
May I know from the Honourable Minister, you mentioned that all the drawing, everything was ready by August 2019, and it's only in August 2021 that the Ministry of Housing has decided to retrieve the land. So why is it that nothing was done between August 2019 to August 2021?
Yes, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. In the meantime, we were looking for different clearances, and this takes a lot of time.
I think I can allow one more supplementary. Yes. Above, I'll call upon Honourable Farademi and then give you the last one. I'll give you the last one, Honourable Farademi. Okay. Question, supplementary.
Thank you. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House that since there has been retrieval of the land by the Ministry of Land and Housing, in the meantime, whether due diligence has been conducted in the region of Port Louis to earmark a particular plot of land for the benefit and welfare of the citizens of Port Louis?
Absolutely, Honourable Member. My ministry is in contact with the Ministry of Land so that we can find a convenient plot of land to carry on the project in the region of Port Louis.
Thank you. Last supplementary, Honourable.
Yes, I think there is a confusion as regards the plot of land. I will submit plans that maybe the minister can bring to his office for clarification. There is no land available for the development of a sports complex at corner Harris and Mayer Street because there is already a football ground there. The only plot of land that is available in Ward 4, state land at this moment in time, is corner Raoul Rivet and Impasse Raoul Rivet. So I will tender this to the House so that he can look at it and maybe later come back with a reply because there is no land available there, save for a strip of green space.
Table, I think you don't even want an answer, you just want him to see.
No, a plan...
Answers then, please.
What information I have, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir? Formal information, it states that the plot of land is situated corner Harris and Mayer Street in Port Louis. However, I will look into the document that has been handed by the Honourable Member.
Thank you. The House has been advised that the following PQs have been withdrawn: PQ B1130, B1131, B1132, and B1133. Honourable First Member, Port Louis South and Port Louis Central. Next question.
B1082.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, allow me to seize this opportunity to reassure the House and, of course, the honourable gentleman that this unprecedented mega project has been conceived to respond effectively and, as far as possible, equitably to housing demand across the whole island of Mauritius. As members of the House are well aware, and as explained over and over again by the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, and myself, the 12,000 new residential units will be built on a constituency basis, with 600 units reserved for inhabitants of each constituency of the island of Mauritius. Identification of suitable buildable sites over the whole island has been, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, a complex and time-consuming exercise. Unfortunately, in some constituencies, including constituencies referred to in the question of the Honourable Member, it has not been possible to secure adequate land for this project. Government is addressing this issue by identifying sites closest to those constituencies, and the new residential units will be reserved for inhabitants of the said constituencies. I am informed that the regions referred to in the question may concern constituency numbers 1, 2, and 3. In that regard, and as things presently stand, the NSLD proposes to proceed as follows. For constituency number 1, new housing sites at Pointe aux Sables and Coromandel. For constituency number 2, new housing sites at Belle Village, Raoul Rivet Street, Vallée Pitot, and Arsenal. For constituency number 3, new housing sites, at Arsenal and Richter. This government, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is committed to ensuring that the right to a decent housing for each citizen of Mauritius, irrespective of the region or the constituency where he resides, is not only recognized as a theoretical principle, but is translated into practice. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Supplementary, please.
Yes, thank you. I welcome the sites of Bell Village and Arsenal, but I would like to ask the Honourable Minister about the one at Raoul Rivet, which was once earmarked, and I'm convinced about it based on the plans that I've just submitted, was reserved for a sports complex. So we are doing a housing project, which is good, in place in lieu of sports complex, which is really needed in the region. Can I ask the Honourable Minister to kindly have consultation with the people there? Because I've met them over the weekend, I somehow felt, based on answers tendered by the Minister of Sports before, during Committee of Supply, that this land has been withdrawn. Can consultation be engaged with the people of Watcat to see whether this is what they really need? Because Bell Village is quite okay if people of Watcat and Thuangba and Valepito and Plainvert can have housing units there.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have explained that this has been a long process and we need to move forward. We need to have moved forward. We've considered all the different possibilities, and I've listed the sites where we are going forward with the construction of social housing. Of course, with my colleague, Minister of Youth and Sports, and in government, we discussed the priorities for the different constituencies. And if the Honourable Gentleman has any suggestions as to other sites that are available, which we have not seen, despite all the work done over these years, then he's most welcome to submit to us his suggestions.
We'll allow Honourable Amos.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. In his answer, the Minister mentioned constituency number 1, that land has been identified at Pointe-du-Sable. Can we have more details? Do you have the exact location of where land has been identified in Pointe-du-Sable? And you also mentioned Coromandel as constituency number 1, so Coromandel is not in constituency number 1. You mentioned Bell Village in constituency number 2. Bell Village is in constituency number 1. So can I have some detail on these two places for Pointe-du-Sable and Bell Village?
Yes, it would be premature at this point in time to identify precisely in the House the location and the extent of each plot of land, because that is liable to be altered, both the sites and the extent of land. There is a long process. Consultants have been appointed, there will be soil tests, there will be design, and as a function of all of these elements, the sites, the location and the size will be finalized. As we know, the process is that government will use state land wherever state land is available. Government will use land belonging to parastatals or state-owned companies wherever and whenever possible. And then government will consider acquiring private land where there is no other alternative. This process is ongoing. I have also explained that there are a number of constituencies where we have not been able so far, as things stand, to find an extent of land adequate for the construction of 600 housing units. And we do not want to construct all 600 housing units on one and the same plot of land, for obvious reasons. So, for instance, constituency number 1, we have in mind land at Pointe-du-Sable, and in the coming weeks, I hope to be able to provide to the Honourable Gentleman more precise information once the land will have been identified, acquired, transferred to the NSLD for construction purposes. And then, since there is no sufficient land within the constituency, Bell Village is a very small plot, Coromandel, where there is state land, has been identified, and housing units built at Coromandel on the land identified will be reserved for inhabitants of constituency number 1. Now, the same applies for constituency number 2. We have a small plot at Bell Village, Raoul Rivet and Valepito identified. The suitability of the land remains to be confirmed. At this point in time, it appears to be doable. But we are looking at high-rise social housing, a new concept. And on top of those small plots, there is an extent of land identified in Arsenal, which has been deemed appropriate and which will be reserved once the units are built for inhabitants of constituency number 2. And likewise, for constituency number 3, the members in the House that represent that constituency are well aware that land is indeed very, very, very limited. In the past, different projects. I remember attempts to identify land to build secondary schools 20 years ago, and we couldn't find any. So again, we are looking at acquiring land in the 2 places mentioned, that is Arsenal and Richter, and there again the units will be reserved for inhabitants of constituency number 3.
I'll accommodate one last short supplementary question because it is your constituency. Honourable team.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. In the light of the answer given by Honourable Minister Hariram with respect to the ring road, now that the government is no longer sure whether to go ahead with the ring road or not, would the Ministry of Housing reconsider? There's a lot of land in constituency number 2 that has been undeveloped because they were going to be used for the ring road project, whether consideration can be given to using these plot of land now to develop housing estates.
Thank you for your question.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me assure the House that over more than a year, we have been looking for land that is not only visible to the naked eye, but that would be appropriate for construction of social housing. We do not want to build houses on land that later on will be at risk of flooding. We're putting at risk the lives of the persons who will live there. So be it in the region of Vallée-Pitot, of Montagne des Signaux, or in Paille, where we did indeed, as the Honourable Gentleman think, we could at least obtain some land that would be appropriate for building purposes. In fact, the Honourable Gentleman himself discussed with me, suggested plots of land, and we've checked. We've given anxious consideration to all these possibilities. Unfortunately, and I repeat unfortunately, we cannot find an adequate extent of land in all 3 constituencies, 1, 2, and 3, to build in situ within the constituency.
Thank you. At this stage, we shall suspend for 1.5 hours.